Happy Halloween, everybody. I had a pretty rotten day today, and honestly, I think it's nobody's fault but my own. I mean, sort of. I guess it's whoever made me the way I am, but maybe that person is me. I guess it's that person's fault. But, they had candy for kids at work and stuff, and I just really dug into that candy. I mean, it was for us too. I kind of sort of asked permission, but yeah, if I'm ever eating large quantities of candy and chips, I'm in a bad mood. Be careful when you talk to me when I'm doing that. And I feel kind of bad if you offer me some candy, I'll say yeah, whatever, and then I'll snatch it and then I'll grumpily eat it. And I may or may not say thank you at that point. But I'm not gonna say exactly what I was thinking, but it occurred to me that I'm gonna say that I'm a mark. And, maybe that's, I don't mean like a person named Mark, but I mean like an easy target. I just feel like I'm really easy to manipulate. And, one thing that I really wish for is that someday somebody's going to know how to handle me and just to deal with the way I do stuff and, predict my behavior. But I also know that, that's sort of, it's being vulnerable in the sense that it's like the emotional equivalent of telling somebody your address. You're teaching people how to manipulate you too when you do that. But yeah, it's just like when you Google up, well, what makes a person easy to manipulate? What makes a person like susceptible to, say, recruiting into a cult or something? Like, there I am, that's a me. And it's almost enough to make you look kind of slant-eyed at anybody who wants to take you in. But I did, in fact, eat enough candy to make me feel sick. So now I feel sick now, too. I know it never helps, but it just feels like I need it. And I'm just glad that I don't do drugs or alcohol or anything like that. I can't. I just need the fucking candy. That's how my mother is, too. And I'm really worried that I'm going to get fat one day. And even just from out of not even just being unattractive, I just personally don't want to be overweight. I like being skinny. But yeah, I just kind of I don't even eat anything else. I'll eat large quantities of candy. Just a sort of fuck everything else mood. I'm gonna eat this candy. But after I got off work, I spent the next 3 hours talking to about 2 coworkers about my girl problems. And this is something that I do often. I usually spend, when I get off work, at least 30 minutes just kind of walking around talking to people. I don't talk to any of my work friends outside of work for the most part. There was a thing with a lesbian cosplayer, and one of my friends that I kind of knew was like a white nationalist, and he had a Discord server, and she was in it she's like really liberal. She's like a polyamorous lesbian cosplayer, and she's in my white nationalist friend Discord server for whatever reason. And, I left the Discord server because, things went poorly with the lesbian cosplayer. And being in there was kind of stressing me out. I'm still friends with my white nationalist friend, but he really likes rap music, so I send him rap music sometimes. And, whenever he needs help out with something, sometimes he'll invite me to do stuff. He is saying he is going to invite me to a party, and, if I see him, I talk and stuff. I don't mean to be trash-talking my friend or whatever. I hold on to my friends. It really takes me a lot to stop being friends with somebody. And partly because, again, just thinking about me. But I am talking to the lesbian cosplayer again, and she was the first person that I talked to. I talked to her for like an hour. And I don't know. Everybody always tells me to run from the women that I talk to. Well, pretty much everybody. She told me that I overthink and that I'm too ready to think that people are flirting with me. And I was going to get to this later, but a lot of the times there are people who, I talk about I'm stressed and people tell me that I worry too much. But a lot of other people tell me that I am way too ready, are really concerned about, all my close friends are really concerned about how frequently I throw myself into very dangerous situations without concern for my safety, happiness, or well-being. And I feel like that's almost an indicator of how close a person is to me. Do you think that I am somebody who worries too much, or do you think that I really recklessly, irresponsibly put myself into really scary situations? My parents have always told me that I'm a naive, overly optimistic pipe dreamer. And I have a history of getting catfished, and that was one of the things that my friends were talking about. They're just trying to, really convince me to actually take steps to avoid getting catfished, and we kind of got there. But anyway, polyamorous lesbian cosplayer. She's talking to me again. She said that I was stalking her at one point and that she is going to report me to HR. And then I just totally stopped talking to her after that. And eventually one day she just starts talking to me again. And she's telling me that I'm extremely non-confrontational. And, it's really interesting to hear this from her, because I think that this is the only time that I've actually had any sort of contact with a woman after I've told her that I was interested in her. And I'm really quite interested to hear what she has to say about me. But, and she very openly, interestingly told me that she is a walking, talking red flag, and that she only ever dates people for a month before getting bored of them. And, I'm sitting here thinking that that's really awful, but at the same time, I'm also thinking about how I myself am quite horrible in my own special way. People usually seem to kind of ignore this point or just don't say anything about it when I bring them up, but I feel like I just need to ignore red flags from people just because of how many red flags I myself put out. I feel like I'm a person to run away from too. And I feel like I just don't want to run away from any of these people that everybody's saying that you need to run away from them, because, it's... one of my old friends that I used to talk about my girl problems with used to tell me that if this person really, L-words you, then I feel bad for them. And I don't disagree with her. I remember that often. But they often say, once a cheater, always a cheater. If a person has a history of cheating in relationships, they're very likely to do it again, and you should avoid that person. I don't have that kind of history, but me personally, I do have a history of, being kind of depressed and kind of trying to, take the way out. And I just feel like it's hypocritical of me to hold people to that standard of, if you've cheated in the past, then I don't want to have anything to do with you because you're a risk. Because I feel like I'm carrying around this, what feels to me like arguably a bigger risk, around with me. I don't know. I feel like it's something that I kind of feel guilty about. Just the sort of, getting cheated on is painful and bad, but just the things that people need to worry about from me are kind of, it's not even me being selfish, but they're probably kind of worse in their own way, and they affect more people. And, it's a bit of a cliche, but I kind of just feel like an accident waiting to happen most of the time. I don't know, looking at myself from a third-person perspective, I just feel like there's just so many things to be concerned about. I really feel guilty about, having friends and stuff. I'm hesitant to assess a potential romantic partner with my head, because whenever that starts happening, I feel like it's only fair that I look at myself too, and when I look at myself that way, it's never good. But moving on, so she's this walking, talking red flag, and she's actually told me that she had a history of catfishing people. I worry if I should feel kind of bad telling people's business like this. I don't know. I hope that this isn't private. I can keep private information private, but please God, tell me that it's private if you want to tell me something that you don't want everybody to know about. Because whenever I have any sort of problem, I'm going to tell everybody, and I'm going to spend hours debating the case. And some people think that that's creepy and weird and obsessive, and honestly, like, I remember things that people tell me about them, but I sometimes pretend that I don't know things about people just because I don't want to seem creepy for knowing them. She's telling me that when a person really cares about you, you can expect them to really try to do anything. And I worry that that's kind of unhealthy, and I'm not really in a position to, like, sort of lay down the law on what a person really needs to do to care about me. She gave me a story about how she wanted to date somebody who would stay up till 8 o'clock in the morning every day, and how she kind of ruined her own schedule to try to make that work. And I mean, I just don't know if I don't know what to say about that. She says that I'm really indirect. I don't express my feelings directly. She feels like when I talk about my feelings, she kind of thinks that what I'm saying isn't really the truth. She's worried that I frequently interpret people as flirting with me when they're just doing random, ordinary, everyday things. She thinks that I'm way too ready to think that a person is interested in me. And that I don't really know what she wants me to do about that. I guess she just to tone down, whatever. I don't know what she wants me to do. But she's also worried that I'm going to get catfished and cheated on. And there's this I'm talking to this really scary woman, this lesbian polyamorous cosplayer. But you know what? I had a good talk with her, and it was, I won't say it was comforting, I guess, but I was like, well, she's so nice. I sure do hope that somebody gives her a chance, and I'm gonna feel really bad for that person. I'm really, I feel more safe being really into what other people consider to be dangerous and scary people, because that was probably the only thing that was keeping me from giving into trying to give her another chance. This polyamorous lesbian cosplayer that has hurt me and called me a stalker in the past. I'm really easy to manipulate, and I kind of just let people run over me over and over again. I feel like I have a much higher capacity for being emotionally hurt than other people, and really physically hurt too, and I kind of feel like, I should kind of use that little gift that I have to just kind of let people take their problems out on me. I really don't feel like, I'm good enough for anybody who doesn't have major issues. And, I imagine some people might say, well, of course you're good enough. But, I mean, when people think of good, they might mean, like, nice or kind. Sure, I might be nice or kind. But, I'm often probably nice and kind in ways that I feel like often cause more harm than good. I think like it's not my place to be helping the world or anything, because I know that my way of helping people, it's not always good. Sometimes my idea of helping people means, going and taking a dirt nap. And people I don't think that anybody wants that kind of help from me, and it's just, I'm kind of at a loss. I'm not really sure that I can think of, anything else that's helpful to say about my lesbian cosplayer friend. I was kind of worried that she was going to start hitting on me too. It was kind of emotional, I think, maybe. I don't know. I guess I'll cap off, her little section with saying that she is, telling me that she really listens to me and remembers stuff that I say to her. And hearing stuff like that really makes me think about other people. Things that people do bother me often just because it makes me think about other people. When I feel listened to and heard by somebody, it makes me wonder about the way that other people in my life might be listening to or hearing me, and when I don't feel listened to and heard and understood by somebody, and it makes me worry that other people aren't listening to and understanding and hearing me and remembering what I say. So pretty much immediately after, a conversation, because I was talking to her while she was on the job. That's the only time that I really talk to people. And I guess, this is out of order, but I can't get this thought out of my head because, this was, again, a thing that terrified me. I was talking about my girl problems. And I was talking about things that I say and, things that, how I talk. And he was just kind of like, oh man, that reminds me of the past about how I used to talk and all these bad things that happened afterwards. And I was like, man, you're freaking me out, dude. I'm hella freaking out. I can never hear any bad thing happening to somebody else without immediately worrying if that's going to happen to me. So, I guess, segue into something else. My self-esteem isn't really connected to how people view me. I have very high self-esteem. And, most of my friends do agree with that, is that I have higher self-esteem. Actually, my ideal partner is literally just me, or like somebody who approximates to me. And if there was like a clone of me, and, a female clone would be preferred, but even if a male clone, I would fuck a literal clone of me. Assuming that I'm not already in a committed relationship, of course. But yeah, I would be down for that. Like, I have high self-esteem. But that doesn't mean that other people are going to like me, or that I'm good for other people, or that I can be positive in people's lives, or that I'm worth being loved and supported and respected. I paused for a while, and I forgot. I paused to think, and I kind of forgot what I was thinking about and where I was. But, one of my exes, I think they were an ex, I'm really never sure. But, maybe I said this before, but they said, I have a man who can make me, or I have somebody who can make me laugh, but that's not what I need. What I need is a man. And I think that they told me that they kind of regretted saying that to me afterwards. But, it kind of stung. And I guess, I was talking, here's the self-esteem thing that I was talking about, is I don't think of myself as being especially masculine. I mean, the most masculine thing about me is how fucking messy my room is. Like, I'm masculine in the way that my room is fucking messy, and I don't really take care of my appearance, and I also don't cook, and my apartment's just a fucking mess. I have that kind of masculinity down pat. But, I was mostly raised by my mother, and I don't really especially like the prospect of being especially masculine in the way a lot of people are. And I feel like that's a disconnect between what I want from myself and what would be self-esteem for me, and, what I feel like people want out of me. There's a meme, the boys only want one thing, and it's fucking disgusting. I guess, people are talking to me about how I need to be more direct and how I need to be better at flirting and stuff like that. There's also people telling me that I constantly think people are flirting with me when they're not. But, it's not like the sex word is something that's just, like, totally, but, more than anything else, I just kind of want to be held and told that I'm doing a good job. Which really sounds like the words of somebody who is about to have something really terrible happen to them. Like, it's kind of hard to think that the world as it is made to support these kinds of things. If my life were a movie and I said something like that, I would be so fucked. I wouldn't be fucked, but I would be about to have a bad time. I would definitely be a person who dies in a movie. And I talked to him for 2 hours, and he kind of said they felt like we were talking in circles. He was worried I was going to get catfished, and he was worried that I like somebody who admired people, that the admiration for those people was something that he found concerning. And I'm willing to go ahead with it, but still, there's a lot of anxiety. I mean, I'm going to have anxiety no matter what. I heard a person telling a story about how in my previous relationships, I used to be really anxious, but I knew that I had found my proper relationship because I wasn't anxious anymore. I think that that's way too much to fucking ask for somebody to not freak me the hell out. Everything in the world freaks me the hell out. And so I feel like I'm just not at all worried about dangerous things. It's sort of like the Hulk. The Hulk, he doesn't seem mad because really he's always angry. I don't seem anxious because I'm always anxious about everything. And I just don't differentiate between the safe things and the dangerous things. It's just fuck it. Everything is dangerous as hell. I'm sorry, everybody, that I went on such a long rant like this, and I'm sorry for anybody's business that has been spoken about. I'm very much an opinion getter. Whenever I have a problem, I need to know what my polyamorous lesbian cosplayer friend thinks. I need to know what my black friend thinks. I need to know what my white nationalist friend thinks. I need to know what some people who have been dead for several thousand years thinks. I need to know what Aristotle thinks about all this. What I'm going to do right now after this is I'm going to read some Confucius. And I'm going to figure out what Confucius says. I almost threw up. There's an ant on me again. I know I keep saying that all my friends are telling me to run like hell from this person, but I don't want to over-exaggerate there. Some of them are kind of like, well, okay, kind of. I guess, considering what I'm working with, I still managed to get a fairly good hearing. I don't like trash-talking people or anything like that. Everybody's very concerned about me. Look, if anybody wanted to date me, I would be very concerned for them. Somebody came by to me saying, "Well, I want to date Devin," and is that a good idea? Gosh, what would I say to them? I'd say that there's a pretty high risk that he's going to voluntarily exit his life at some point. No matter what happens, I don't think that risk is going to go away. I think that he does a lot of very strange things while he's in his house, and I think that he's very, very particular about how things are done over there, and he drove his mother crazy. I don't think that he knows what he's thinking half the time, and I think that you can't really rely on him to give a clear expression of anything.